Why do people love this miniature capital class torpedo boat coming in at 160 plus meters with 28 capital ship busting torpedoes, a blistering assortment of large weapons, a hangar bay for a ship, a medical bay, a brig, and full cruise quarters? Why? The RSI Polaris is an 8-year-old ship concept and the most anticipated ship release in years. It's the first capital class combat ship in the game, but is the game even ready? Let's talk about what this ship is about, how its arrival could change the way Star Citizen is viewed, and how you can see it in the game this week. Thank you for coming to my Tomato Talk. So Invictus Week 2024 has begun. This event is a celebration of military-focused ships. In the game universe, this is a huge recruiting event for the Navy. For us, this is an opportunity to try out some combat-focused ships for free, play the game for free completely, take part in special conflicts or activities in-game, and of course, purchase ships on the store. All ships which can alternatively be earned in-game. During a few different years of this event, we've seen special arrivals. Once there was a Drake Kraken, another time they somehow fit an entire Idris inside a showroom. And for the last few years, they've been parading around different combinations of the Idris, Javelin, and Bengal, the largest warships in the game, two of which can be owned by players. All of these ships are very impressive and actually the largest ships in the game, but it's the Polaris that finds itself the most hyped in the community. And at Invictus Week this year, you'll be able to see it flying around in a parade of sorts and on display at the Expo Hall for a close-up look. Fun fact, this Corvette-class missile boat doesn't actually exist during the events of Squadron 42. It was a commission by the UEE Navy to replace the Idris as a quick-launch, smaller vessel in dangerous space. The Militia Mobile Initiative, the same initiative that has you fighting pirates like Xenothreat in the Stanton system, also helped to get this thing bankrolled and built after the opening events of Star Citizen's single-player campaign. That being said, the Polaris was announced back in the middle of CitizenCon 2016 with this awkward ad.
Part of any fleet for years to come, but the Polaris is only the tip of the spear for this grand initiative. A full line of other ships are now available for a limited time. And to support faster mobilization and operational effectiveness, fleet formations are being offered in discounted pre-designed ship teams. So stand in solidarity with the brave men and women who put their lives on the line and join them in protecting the dream that is the UEE. Answer the call today.
This was the same year we saw Sandworms, the absolutely god-awful roadmap to 4.0, and an update on Squadron 42 that in hindsight was not very useful. This was a painful time to follow the project. Marketing and management decisions during this era kept missing. But with enough time to brew, one of those decisions comes bearing fruit in 2024. Now, it was announced when plenty of features were not fully realized. We knew we'd have engineering, fully destructible ships, and capital ship gameplay, but we didn't know how they would specifically fit into the game or how the game would fit specifically into them. So the ship ended up going from around 155 meters to more than 165 meters over time to accommodate for additions like standardized hangar sizes, cargo spaces, and component locations. This doesn't really happen anymore because the team that creates ship concepts basically works with the team that builds the ships, and the game engine has been built out enough that most of those systems are set in some sort of place. So it's a more efficient process with less discrepancy between the concept that you see and like and maybe even go and buy, and the reality that you get in game. That being said, after 8 years of waiting, the ship looks amazing and incredibly close to what was shown. But what exactly are you getting with the Polaris? Well, from what we know at the time of writing, the component makeup of the ship includes one size 4 radar, 2 medium computers, possibly size 2, a size 4 power plant, size 4 cooler, and 1 size 4 shield generator, 2 medium fuel tanks, a large quantum fuel tank, a large jump drive, and 3 large fuel intakes. It also contains several turrets, 3 size 5 manned turrets, 2 size 5 manned turrets with quad guns, 1 remote size 4 missile turret with 12 missiles, and 1 automated size 4 turret with quad guns. It also carries, of course, its 28 torpedoes, which are the primary armament meant to go up against medium to large size ships. This thing's got some firepower to it, no doubt. But keep in mind we may see any of these sizes or components change, as the ship has already undergone a lot of work since our last update in November, and we'll continue to see minor tweaks as components, balance, and capital ship gameplay comes online. Also good to note, there will likely be an update on this ship just a few days after this video is published, so keep an eye out. Now on top of this armament, you have a massive amount of space to use. Look at something like a Carrack. Plenty of space for you, a bunch of friends, a medical bay, drone service area, armory, component workstation, cartography room, and any small vehicles or ships you may want to bring fit in the hangar or the cargo bay. It's a ton of potential in a single package, and as group-based gameplay becomes more of a focus for this game, this is going to be a bigger and bigger deal. For the Polaris, in addition to everything we've mentioned, you also do have support for more gameplay, a medical bay, a brig for prisoners, and an armory for all kinds of weaponry, housing for a quality logging on and off experience, and a cargo bay for cargo transportation. All of this in a ship that's 20 to 30% smaller than its predecessor. It's a small capital ship with a small crew requirement of 6 and a smaller radar signature than others. The size, amenities, and overall role make this a very useful ship for small groups, and while many may think this will be a PvP ship, it will undoubtedly be one of the best ways to play the game in groups of 5 to 10 in a multitude of different PvE focused ways. Let's take a look at all those different gameplay options for different players, from cargo haulers to commanders, and maybe you'll start to feel the same excitement that my own community seems to feel. You crazies. One might think at first glance that every ship will be used for specific reasons. The Caterpillar is a cargo hauler, the Terrapin an explorer, and the Retaliator a bomber. But modularity, as we'll talk about in a few weeks, component and item mount customization, and a multitude of different facilities are going to allow creative players to make a lot more of their ships than their initial design. That Caterpillar, for instance, can double as an aircraft carrier of sorts, or even a salvage collector. The Terrapin, with its armor flaps, can make for a great deadly environment search and rescue vehicle. And the Retaliator can add cargo modules for armed transport purposes. All of these possibilities scale up just as the size and options a ship offers do. As of now, the Polaris can carry around 432 SCU of cargo capacity, which gives you more storage than even an 890 jump. This gives you many options for cargo transportation gameplay. You could keep a small transport like a Hull A in the hangar to ferry deliveries down to cities, outposts, and distribution centers to avoid bringing such a large ship into atmosphere. With so much defense and such a long range, you may have a good upper hand in particularly dangerous star systems in populated space. In the Pyro, Cathcart, or Vanduul systems, this could be a worthwhile strategy. There is also the possibility of having multiple cargo ships, allowing you and some friends to run several deliveries simultaneously and always having a heavily guarded and imposing base to return to. The same can be done for bounty hunting. With a brig on board, it is expected that your team take prisoners and others with bounties on their head and turn them into the local or galactic authorities. This could work a few different ways. A Scorpia Centaurus would be a great first punch to disable targets trying to get away, or provide some additional fire. The Legionnaire would make for a brilliant attack and boarding vessel. Along with an armory and medbay on board to keep an FPS team equipped, this would be a strong strategy. And ultimately, if you're running with a squadron of something like Cutlass Blues, you can always have them dump their prisoners onto the Polaris for safety while they continue to go about missions in the star system you're in. Again, acting as a home base for a bounty hunting or militia group rather than just an attack vessel. And on the other side of things, a couple of C8R Pisces could make the Polaris their home as an armed medical facility in dangerous space. C8Rs can use it as a backup and a home base while taking local missions, and the medical team on board can handle more serious injuries that have to get ferried back to the ship. Then there's the general combat prowess of the ship you can put to use. The Polaris works as the flagship in a fleet on patrol, with its massive torpedoes providing a strong deterrent to medium-sized ships. It also functions as a standalone patrol boat that could take on small groups of single-seat fighters, especially with an extra backup in its hangar bay. But it does lack a bit in defenses against those smaller ships, but beware. Finally, the Polaris makes for a good support craft to larger ships. Though this is a less likely use case for most, I think, in larger fleet battles it'll depend on ships like the Idris to take on the larger vessels. But will the Polaris be the proper ship for your militia? Will it be able to fit a Nova tank in its bay? And will you be able to efficiently run it with less than 6 people? We aren't going to be able to answer these questions or most of the other ones we have until later this year when we start to see it in Inside Star Citizen or get it in our own hands. And I'll be sure to have an update for you then when it happens. But at the end of the day, this is a combat transport, a large-scale bounty hunter, a dungeon raid runner for you and your friends, and a long-distance vessel meant as a home base for an organization. The arrival of this ship is the heading at the top of a long essay about group gameplay in Star Citizen. Almost anything in the game has been easily tackled by solo players, from FPS missions to capital ship bounties to mining some of the largest asteroids. But over the last year, each of these areas has shown movement towards more group-based activity. And from the larger scale global events to multi-crew engineering gameplay to the added depth of certain professions, the game is beginning to nudge players into more group gameplay. Make no mistake that the Polaris is the beginning of the biggest push in that direction, and will continue with a lot of capital ships after, combining these systems to hopefully throw players against larger scale missions and conflicts, as well as each other. So, why do people love this miniature capital class torpedo boat with 28 torpedoes, a hangar bay for ships, weapons, a medical bay, brig, and full crew quarters? I think we all had a pretty good idea 11 minutes ago. It's a beautiful ship capable of many things and anticipated for quite some time. And it rivals the Carrack in hype for the same reason the Carrack is still loved and used today. It's a new shift in the way ships can be used. It hosts a lot of things that we can do, and it's the introduction of true capital ship gameplay. Now, I'd love to tell you how capital ship gameplay will play out in Star Citizen, but nobody really knows just yet what it'll look like across each game loop. From here on, we'll begin to see more large ships in Star Citizen, and you'll notice more focus on things like voice comm systems, organization tools, and larger scaled missions to encourage this gameplay. There will still be plenty of solo play, but we are definitely looking at the beginning of a new phase of development for Star Citizen. If you'd like to find a group to crew a Polaris or any other ship in the game with, my organization, the Garden Interstellar Initiative, is hosting activities basically every day right now to have some fun, get better at the game, and prepare for ships like the Polaris. So if you're interested in joining a group, hit the link down below. And if you'd like to keep up with Star Citizen, consider subscribing here, to my second channel for podcasts and long-form content, or to Space Tomato Plays for gameplay. Whatever you do decide, I hope you learned something new in this video, and I'll catch you in the next.